G'day folks, Steve from Vintage Restorations Australia here. In today's episode we have a look at cleaning of the chassis and the beginning of the corrosion control for that, and also John starts to break down the front diff assembly. So this stuff you buy from Repco, and you can get 12 cans for about $19.90. Works a treat. The beauty is, give it a shake, it actually squirts incredibly well. You see that? Especially good for a lazy restorer like me. We're just going to degrease this stuff because this is all going to come out, and I don't like dealing with dirty stuff. With all this stuff, just give it a good old spray and a clean up before you start trying to disassemble it. Just makes it a little bit easier to get at and work on. So I've just got to cut a bit of an access port here. This has to go, but we're not going to cut it off quite yet. So I'm just going to cut a bit of an access hole here so we can blast pressure water through here and clean out the chassis channel up to the front. And we'll cut off the cap on the other end of this, which is a bit corroded anyway. So we'll just cut this little access port here and give it a good old clean out. We'll do that on both sides here and there, so we can clean right through that channel as well. So we cut these little access holes. See in there the amount of corrosion and crud and all this kind of guff. The aim is to get all of that out and get corrosion inhibitor in, but we need to give it a good old clean first and reduce as much of that loose corrosion and dirt build up and stuff as we can. This one's quite corroded, but we're going to cut it out to get access to get all this rubbish and stuff out. So we'll cut that off. We'll also cut this other one out. Although that's sound enough, we'll cut it, clean out the chassis as best we can, and then get some corrosion inhibitor up into there, and we'll put another patch on the end. We've cut that off. You can see here we've got the crushed collar. Now it's going to bore a little hole through here. Well, not a little hole, maybe about 10 or 12 mil hole, and that'll allow us some access into the end of the chassis tube there, the chassis rail, and we'll be able to flush stuff through and also get corrosion inhibitor into there. So I'll drill that hole, and then we'll do the same on the other side. In the cleaning process, we've blasted water in all these little access holes. There's a whole bunch of them along the chassis, so we've blown high pressure water into all of those until anything coming out is run clear. The same on the top side, so we've gone through here and blasted water all the way through, so that's pretty clean now. The next step for that is to blow ethanol through there to de-water it, and then we'll look at blowing through a rust converter, which is basically tannic acid. That will tannate the entire inside of the chassis, all the chassis bits, for corrosion control and rust prevention.
It's in your car.
Is that good?
Got here, Steve. I like the old chassis.
The bent chassis workbench. Quite handy, actually. We might make it a permanent feature of the workshop, John.
Yeah, I'm going to put some proper legs on it and a bit of a nicer top.
Yeah. What are you up to, John?
We had to use the oxy-torch, the blue wrench, to loosen these nuts because they're all really tight. We're going to strip the front axle and see what parts we need to order, so that when we order the chassis bits, we can add a few extra things in the post.
And this one looks better than the other one?
No.
No.
This one has like a 180-degree rotation. That's a lot of slop in the pinions. That's bad.
Yeah.
The other one has about 30-degree slop, which means a lot less wear in the pinions. But this one has the better quality swivels. You have a lot more chrome remaining, a lot less pitting. So I think we want these swivels, and we might need the pinion gear from the other axle.
So we're going to build one good one out of two bad ones.
Yep.
Seems to be the way this project's going.
Just as well we've got spares.
Yeah, plenty of them.
The other one I kept tapping away at and it eventually just sort of loosened up.
Lubrication is the answer. I've said that before. Or hitting it harder.
Yeah, that was breaking.
Wobble.
Yeah, that free plays a bit much.
Look at that.
That's where it's the rest of it's rusty. Yay!
I saw it move.
Sure?
Well, I thought it was.
Yeah. King hit the kingpin. No.
So they fill these with grease now rather than oil to keep them lubed because the oil leaks out. There's a seal around here we're going to need to replace. That's fairly cheap to buy. There's two optional coverings that go with that as well. You leave the seal in. You get a rubber gaiter, more expensive, or you get a leather gaiter, very period. I quite like it.
Yeah.
And it bolts on here, and you stitch it up.
We're bringing this car into the next century, so we're going rubber.
It was like £89 each.
Wow.
No, for a set.
Wow.
Whereas the leather ones were like £23 a set.
We're going leather.
We're going leather.
I love tradition.
Tradition's great.
And a bunch of shims.
Count the shims, keep them.
Just. Oh, yeah, maybe there's another one there. Yep.
Give it
That's
a
it.
scrape with the thing just in case, you never know. A bit rusty in there, but sort of,
Could be another one.
you know.
Been waiting.
Nice.
It's not pretty, is it? Anyway, pull it to bits and clean it.
So, moisture, not a good sign. And the universal joint shouldn't do this.
Universally bad.
Universally stuffed.
Oh. That's a bit of the
We'll
slop that you felt.
Yeah, we'll be getting a new one of those. Whoa, there's no needle roller bearings I can see down in that joint, and should be.
Mm-hmm.
So that means there's metal all the way through all the grease, just making into a nice grinding paste.
Totally.
So is this chrome?
No, that'd be mild steel. Well, heat treated steel usually.
Yep.
bit of water in there.
Yeah.
But this has been sitting for a long time. It's probably condensation more than... Oh, when we open this, we'll find out what's...
Replacing all the seals anyway, won't you?
Look at this bit.
Much aesthetic change there. A little bit of grease and stuff off. The gearbox is looking quite clean. That can come out now. Next couple of weeks we're going to be waiting for parts to arrive, these chassis parts. I didn't want to cut that rear cross member off until I got the other one, just to make sure it's all good. And we'll cut that off and put the other one straight on when the parts show up. We've also got this cross member through here. It's a bit too dinged underneath, so we're gonna, we'll remove the gearbox, replace that cross member. We've just got a little bit of pad welding on these outriggers and a bit of straightening to do here and on the old fuel tank hanger there. And we've got to manufacture a fuel tank, well not a fuel tank, a battery box hanger for this side to match that one over there. But I guess on the next day where we're working on this, we'll be blowing through some ethanol through the chassis to dry it out, and then we'll be blowing ionizer or rust converter into the chassis to make sure it's all stable and inhibited internally. That's it for today, folks. Hope you can join us next week when we continue on with the rebuild of the chassis. The parts have turned up for that now, so we'll be doing some cut and weld repairs on it, as well as continuing with that corrosion control on the interior. We'll talk you through that. The parts have also showed for the diff and a whole bunch of other parts. We ordered $2,800 worth of parts and they've all showed up in 3 shipments. So we'll be continuing on with the rebuild of the diff and talking through where we bought the parts, what we bought, the costs and those kind of things. So I hope you can join us then. See you then.